International Convention and Labor Breakfast. I'm Terrell Brown from ABC 7. A few quick thank yous to get out of the way here to Rainbow Push, to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., who is in the room now, see him back there, and also to Citizenship Education Fund. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here this morning. Everybody get breakfast? Everybody good? That bacon smells delicious. Yeah, Get me some of that here pretty soon. He probably needs no introduction, and with his untiring work for society in so many different areas, it's actually tough sometimes to keep up with all of his accomplishments, endeavors, and his accomplishments, and I'm sure he will tell you more about it. So, everybody give it up for the founder and the president of Rainbow Push and the force behind this convention, everybody, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.
I'm not going to serve you because of my race. I'm not going to serve you.
There's a picture you see of us pointing, saying the police were coming to us with their guns out. And we said, the bullet came from that way. I mean, no one come to us, go to where the shot came from.
Our time has come. A new day has begun. Red, yellow, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you. Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it.
The reality is these people need food and medicine. They need airlifts. You cannot get past these roads in the mud.
Everybody, here he is, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.
Good morning, Labor. I greet you today with a special delight as we engage in the fight of our lifetimes, the dignity and the security of working people, indeed of working poor people. The one movement where black, brown, and white find common ground, because when you're in the hole and it's dark, we all look amazingly the same in the dark. And ultimately, the issue is not so much about black, brown, and white as it is wrong and right. It's right to deny people the right to work, deny them the right to organize for collective bargaining, and it is wrong to give them temporary status and undermine their benefits and their capacity to have dignity. I want to say at the outset, one of our very special honorees today, who is my mentor, was through his connection. I ended up in Selma, Alabama while in school. He was, in an iconic way, he was hit in the face by Jim Clark in Selma, Alabama, the hit that was heard around the world and seemed to help to spur us to fight back. I want you on your feet for Reverend C.T. Vivian. Reverend C.T. Vivian, please stand. Reverend C.T. Vivian. C.T., 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 C.T. In this era of emailing and fast technology, sometimes we try to substitute a marching feet with emails, but it just doesn't work, y'all. Some fights must be fought. The good news is we have never lost a battle that we fought, no matter how long it took. We've never lost a battle that we fought, never won a battle unless we fight. And so fight, and fight on, put your hands together if that makes sense to you. I say that because a number of our labor leaders with whom I've talked, some have grown weary, and we're taught in the Bible not to grow weary of well-doing. I raise the issue of temporary workers, which is maybe the scam of our time. It is as slick as anything Trump ever did. Temporary workers, when you work X number of hours and then you laid off just before you work 40 so you don't get benefits. So you work 8 or 9 days and get laid off before 6 months. It's a scam, and no one has taken on that fight in this state more gutturally with legislation than Sister Ammons. Representative Ammons, come forward and receive our award today. A freedom fighter from Chicago by way of Champaign-Urbana. Get a hand for Representative Ammons. Put your hand like you mean it, y'all. Now y'all scream for basketball players and getting nothing out the deal. By way of Chicago, from Champaign, Illinois, the leader of this drive to get temporary workers full-time benefits, Sister Ammons.
Thank you. Good morning to Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push for their tireless work before I even became a thought in my mother's womb. I thank Reverend Jackson and Reverend Vivian and so many others who laid the foundation for me to stand before you this morning. I am not ungrateful for the work that you've done. And we owe a lot to Reverend Jackson and stand on the battlefield in times where people suggested that the battle is over. I suggest to you this morning, my responsibility is to share with you the next battlefield. Although there are many that we can talk about, clearly I can talk about criminal justice reform with my great Senator James Claiborne, who is in the audience, who has been working on that long before I came along. And all of the colleagues in the Illinois House who have been struggling, those past and those present, who have been struggling to reflect black communities across this state and ultimately across this country. But the one thing that we all have in common in this room is the value of labor and the role it plays in our society. Just imagine an industry, a workforce, I'm sure we can imagine, where the worker has to rent materials and pay a portion of their wages back to the person who hired them. Imagine a worker who can't receive a check stub even though the law says they must, and can't verify the hours that they have worked, and some of their wages are paid back to the institutions for which they have to cash their checks, and in some cases, a charge on a credit card to get the wages that you've earned. Imagine an industry where the bosses in this industry are not exactly identifiable, that there's a third party between the worker and the actual agency for which they're working. They don't control their labor or any part of that. Imagine that industry. Now, in some cases, I've just described to many who are much older than I a sharecropping industry. I've described sharecropping in a historical context for which the person working never seemed to get ahead and don't earn enough wages to make the difference at the end of the cycle. But that is called temporary workers today. Today, I want to describe to you and suggest that part-time workers are not temporary workers. So those who may not understand how critical this is in Illinois, there's some 842,000 temporary workers in Illinois. Many of us believed in the 1980s when East St. Louis was ravished with deindustrialization, we believed that all of those jobs must have just went overseas to China and Mexico, because that was the story that we were told. But those jobs were right here in the United States. They transitioned from what we know as permanent employment to what we know today as temporary staffing agencies. Now, there is a role for temporary agencies if they're temporary, right? When you were doing Christmas labor, you know, you needed some extra hands and help so that you can get your production out and mail those packages and make sure you can make Christmas. But that's not what temporary workers do today. Temporary workers make everything that you can imagine, and some of them are here with me today. And the reason why we've invited them here, thank you, Reverend Jackson, for inviting the workers, because sometimes they remain nameless and faceless. We do a lot of work in the legislature, and we get honored for the work that we do in many cases, and I'm appreciative. But that work would not be real without the work of the two people that I want to highlight and share their stories with you this morning. We've had some things in Chicago that people can remember. Labor is not just the unionized worker, but it's also the non-unionized worker, the person that you cannot see. So in this last cycle, I sponsored House Bill 690, called the Responsible Job Creation Act. We called it the Responsible Job Creation Act because we believe that the industry and the workers have a partnership that should be upheld. In that case, Senator Miguel del Valle, a great senator of the state of Illinois and now a member of the ICC, the Illinois Commerce Commission, he began to work on something called the Temporary Worker Act in Illinois. Illinois is leading the way. So let me just say that. Of many things we're not doing very well in Illinois, one of them that we are is making sure that we continue to work on improving the condition for temporary workers in our state. But we still have so much more to do. Senator del Valle started this track before I arrived in Illinois, as far as a legislator is concerned. He began to work on this because the level of exploitation in temporary work was unimaginable in a society that's supposed to be civilized. Temporary workers were picked up early in the morning before the sun rose, picked up in a van, packed in there, and driven way out to some industrial location. And in many cases, they were left there, and you had to figure out how to get back home on your own. We wanted to fix that. We demanded that if you pick them up, you bring them back. The number two reason in the country, number one is technology is taking over jobs, and number two is temporary workers. Temporary workers do not want to be temporary workers. Let me make that clear. Every person who is working wants a stable, living wage job. Every person wants the same thing. Let me describe my friend Isara Martinez, who I hope will come up and join me on the stage. Isara is a strong woman. She doesn't speak much English, but she and I seem to have been able to communicate quite well. Isara, who has been working for temporary agencies for the last 6 years. Isara does not want to be a temporary worker, but over the 6 years, she's not been offered permanent employment in all of those 6 years. Isara has suffered sexual harassment that gets her unemployed from that agency and make her move on to another. Isara has been injured, but she doesn't have the rights and the benefits that protect normal workers. She don't have a union that go and advocate on behalf of Isara. When she's injured, she's simply out of work. Isara has a family she's been trying to take care of. So Isara decided, as Reverend Jackson did when he was a young man, decided that if we were going to do anything to improve the condition of black people, we have to do it ourselves. And Isara got involved and decided that she would do it herself. Any recognition that is given here this morning is because of Isara's courage, her courage, and her dedication, not just to her own job, but to the job for other people who will come after her. That is the requirement of every human being, I believe, on this planet. Isara, we thank you for sacrificing and for dedicating your time and your attention. Isara testified, even in the Illinois House, it was not easy to pass something that seemed so common sense legislation. But Isara came to every single hearing, every session. She was very instrumental in convincing our Latino members to vote for House Bill 690. Believe me, we had to fight for this. It was not given to us easily. Thank you so much, Isara. Thank you for your work. We also appreciate her dedication because she's not just done it for her, but she's also brought along her colleague, Bakari, who is here to join us. And Bakari, Whitfield is his name, is a member of the Warehouse Workers for Justice. That's right, we should clap for them. He has been working for temporary agencies, and I'm certain, let me ask you, if he wants a permanent job, or would you rather be a
I want a permanent job.
He wants a permanent job. What is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to create methods by which people can work and give their service. But Bakari didn't give up. Bakari knew it was difficult out there. We knew that people that have trouble, they still need and have the desire to work. So Bakari became an organizer. Bakari became an organizer. That is the main principle of labor organizing. He got involved himself and decided to fight for himself and his colleagues. And Bakari organized and came to Springfield, many of whom had never come to the Capitol to advocate for anything. And they did it. And they came and talked to legislators. For the first time in his entire life, he became a lobbyist organizer for himself and for the other workers of Workers Warehouse. So we appreciate what they've done, and we thank you, Reverend Jackson. We thank you for making this an issue, not only in Illinois, but you've gone around and made an issue in the entire country. And we hope to continue to work across this country to move them from temporary workers to unionized workers paid a living wage in the state of Illinois. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Muy buenos días a todos.
Good afternoon to everybody.
Me quedo emocionada y sin palabras
I'm here very impressioned and you left me without words.
al escuchar a nuestra representante.
When I hear our representative,
Me siento muy orgullosa de estar en este lugar.
I'm very proud to be here in this place.
Mi nombre es Isaura Martínez, trabajadora temporal.
My name is Isaura Martinez and I am a temporary worker.
Estoy muy contenta por este paso que se ha ganado.
I'm very proud and happy with this step that we have now won.
Agradezco de todo corazón a nuestra representante
And I'm very grateful with all my heart to our representative
por su grande apoyo
and for her being a leader and for her support.
incondicional y por todos los que apoyaron este bill.
And for everybody that supported this bill.
Como trabajadora temporal y a nombre de mis compañeros,
As a temp worker and in the name of me and all my coworkers,
trabajadores temporales,
temp workers,
doy gracias
I'm grateful
a nuestra representante Hammer.
to our representative.
No sé inglés,
I don't speak English.
discúlpenme, pero
Please forgive me.
Para nosotros
For us,
surge una esperanza y una luz
now there's a light of hope
para mi gente y mis compañeros trabajadores temporales
for my people and our coworkers
con este paso que se ha logrado.
with this first step that we were able to pass.
Por mis hermanos afroamericanos
For our brothers and sisters, African American
y todas las
workers,
razas,
and everybody who's working.
esta es una luz para nosotros.
This is a light in our lives.
De corazón, mil gracias.
With all my heart, thank you so very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Say, she does not speak English. We do not speak Spanish. 2/3 of this hemisphere speak Spanish. English is a minority language in this hemisphere. We must learn to speak Spanish as she learns to speak English. English and Spanish are great languages, but Jesus did not speak in either. Thank y'all very much. Yeah. Y'all been crying because you can't speak English. Trump can't either talk about bigly. He can't speak it either.
Man, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you people this morning. I said it, I speak it in Hebrew. Hey, I just want to thank the Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson and Representative Ammon, you know, for standing up here for us, and I'm fighting for those who come behind me. My mother was from East St. Louis. I'm from Joliet, and I work in them warehouses, and we just want a fair shot. We want a permanent job because we working as hard, if not harder, as the other workers, you know? And whether it be because of your background, your race, or your sex, your gender, or whatever, you deserve a fair shot to feed and provide for your family. You know what I'm saying? And I stand up here in solidarity with my brothers and sisters, you know, from Warehouse Workers for Justice and other organizations, and we stand and we want a fair shot. And this bill helped pass because we were being discriminated and we were being charged for drug tests and background checks. And we just, we're making steps, we're taking strides. And man, it's just an honor to be here. And I want to thank you all, and we're going to keep the fight strong. I ain't got much to say, but I said it. So thank y'all. All right.
Put your hand together. One of the hardest working men in our organization was Don Harris. Don was a picket captain. Don was an organizer worker. When Don retired, he accepted the challenge of fixing up our building and bringing in workers who didn't have a job, to give them meaning in their work, and Don is dead, but Don lives on. I want Brother Felton Payton to come up here, and Dwight Davenport, Push Building Group. Come up here, Dwight. These retired laborers, give them a big hand. They're receiving the Don Harris Award. They can fix anything. You'll get your awards eventually. Say amen now. Y'all know eventually means we can pay the man to make the trophies. All right? All right? The Addie Wyatt Award. Addie was one of the first person to take a $10,000 contribution to Dr. King. She helped to organize CBTU locally and nationally, given the highest ranking black woman in all of organized labor. And in that legacy is Jackie Algie from SEIU. Jackie? while she's coming, ACIU now has a new director, Gregory Kelly. Greg, come up, please, Greg and Sam and Jackie. New ACIU leader. Young, strong man with something on his mind. Y'all got somebody's sexual labor out picture going.
Good morning. How's everyone? I am truly honored to receive this prestigious award. Addie Wyatt was one of my mentors. Tell you a brief story about how I met her very quickly. I was working at U.S. Steel. They'd asked me to go to a luncheon to represent the corporation. And when I got there, I was looking for my seat. And someone told me, you go sit at that table. I had no idea who Addie Wyatt was. But as I sat there, I watched person after person, men and women, white and black, all nationalities, coming to this woman for advice, for counsel, to share things with her. And that was real clear to me, the power that she had. I've learned over the years that she not only had power in that room, but she had power throughout this country. And so we as women, we as people, have to demonstrate the power that we have, take advantage of it, stand up for the justice that we deserve. Thank you.
Greg, this is the new SCIU here. Give him a big hand. Greg, how old are you?
I'm 46.
Look like you're 26, but you're 56. How old are you, Greg?
Good morning, brothers and sisters. I guess good morning. So I would give you greetings and bid you adieu from SEIU Healthcare Illinois, the 92,000 member strong union of home care, nursing home, hospital, and child care workers. I have to say, as always, thank you, Reverend Jackson, for your leadership. To one of my idols, Reverend C.T. Vivian, who I did not know would be here. Yes. And of course, one of the great labor secretaries in recent memory, Chairman Perez. It is indeed an honor to be here with labor in the House of Labor on this great day. I would just say that we continue to fight for 15 and a union. Our union is clear that without immigrant justice, racial justice, and environmental justice, we're all just talking. We know that all of our struggles are tied in together, and we will continue to fight. Because we say in my union, when we fight, we win. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Put your hands together. The Legacy Award, the one who has worked with us, well, since she was a child, which ages all of us, but she is a freedom fighter and organizer of workers, Fellowship Baptist Church, Helen Warren. Helen, come forward. The Legacy Award. Where are you, Helen? She is not retired. She works at push 60 hours a week. She's not a temporary worker, but she's an unpaid one. John, come and take the picture, man.
Reverend Jackson and Push, thank you so much for this honor. And it's a privilege as I've matured in life to continue to work with an organization that I've worked with since I was a child. Thank you so much.
Also one who has worked with us to open up trade unions. You know, we have been locked out for so long until we can't even build where we live. But a man is with us today who is Don Bernanke, who works with us in the Midwest Trade Unions, a Building Trades Award to Don Bernanke. Don, come forward, please. Give him a real big hand. Now he in strange territory. Give him another hand. Make him feel comfortable.
Thank you very much, Reverend Jackson, and to PUSH. I actually stand here very humbled in awe. I think the representative said earlier that she stood here not ungrateful for everything that has been done through the people of this organization, and I share that gratefulness for what you have done and accomplished. It really is, this award, though my name is on it, really is not about me. It's about the organization that I work with and the community partners that we engage with. And honestly, as I grew up, I had the good fortune of having a family and mentors who really encouraged me to have an open heart, to have an eye for fairness, and a drive for equality. And as I applied these in my career, I really do believe that they are the fundamentals of what responsible business leadership is about. And I have tried to employ that as we've started to work with organizations and businesses in the communities to try to make sure that sustainable job opportunities are created. Created not just by 1 or 2 buildings that we build, but by also encouraging entrepreneurs within the community to build from within so that those opportunities can continue. I'm very proud that today one of those entrepreneurs is with us, Kelvin Jenkins, who within the last year has started a business within the community that now is growing and engaging others. And so if we can continue to build the bridge into the communities, then sustainable jobs will result and sustainable opportunities will result. So thank you very much, Reverend, and thank you all for this opportunity.
LAST is the most active union in the city in terms of mass action affecting mass political change, which is in some sense awakened and aroused the labor movement here and around the country, has been the Chicago Teachers Union. A fierce force for justice in that union has been Stacey Gates. Stacey, please go. Let's hear it for Stacey.
Wow. I guess you get used to being a worker and a mother and you don't expect a thank you. So this is deeply humbling. I come on behalf of all of the men and women who work for the Chicago Public Schools. The Chicago Teachers Union has done something very monumental since Karen Lewis, our president, took the helm of the union. And what she said is that our union is going to be different. Our union is not just going to be concerned with the bread and butter of wages and benefits, but we're also going to be concerned about the neighborhoods in which our members live in. So what she is telling, what she is leading and instructing on this big stage of labor is that in a time where your president is a billionaire and tweets out his disdain for the people of this city, in a time where you have a governor who, by the way, is also a billionaire, who releases memos about his disdain for the people who live in this state, and when you have a mayor of this city who would rather negotiate with the segregationists, because that's what Jefferson, Beauregard, Sessions is, right? Rather than the men and women who make this city run, it's a problem. It's a problem when you have Walmart workers saying that we got to pay Walmart to work for them. And it is also a problem when CTA workers got to pay the city to work for them. When you work 12 hours, you get paid 12 hours, not 8. When you work the third shift as a woman, you don't have to get off the bus in an unsafe neighborhood and go pee in a porta potty. You understand? We got a lot of work to do, labor. This is nice to be appreciated. It's nice to sit here, but we have a lot of work. It's not about our negotiating tables. It's about the neighborhoods that your workers live in. Can they live in a neighborhood that's safe and unoccupied? Can they walk their child to the school down the street? Do their neighbors have jobs? On the south and west side of this city, we are dealing with Great Depression era levels of unemployment. On the south and west sides of this city, we are dealing with Great Depression levels of unemployment. What is that saying? That's saying that we got to open up the public sector. That's not saying that we have to pay our fair share. We are doing enough. Our president and our governor, they're not doing enough. So what I want us to leave here with, and let's think about this very simply. 2018, we have a gubernatorial race that may reach $300 million in expenses. What is that telling you? What do you want? Every black woman in here is going to be courted for their vote. Every worker in here is going to be asked to take a shift. What are you asking for? What are you demanding? Well, I'm going to tell you what, and make it very simple. You need a well-resourced neighborhood with curbs, street lights, and without occupation. You need a school in your neighborhood that's well-resourced, that you will feel good about leaving your child. And you need the men and the women in your family to have a job. Develop an insult level and make a demand. Thank you.
Some years ago, I had the privilege of meeting our keynote speaker for today, the heads of the Democratic National Committee working for the Department of Justice, giving content to a department whose lights have been cut out for a long time. And then with the Department of Labor, the Office of Civil Rights, now heads the DNC. He has a sensitivity to the fact that in this state, Tom, if the Affordable Health Care Bill is killed, 72,000 jobs of number one breadwinners. In this state, another 900,000 are temporary workers working but cannot get benefits. To have a head of our party who is sensitive to the plight of working people is the order of this day. Don't forget, when you lose, you tend to amplify woulda, coulda, shoulda. When you win, you cover up your sins. Don't let them fool you. We worked last year. We won the election. It was stolen. From John F. Kennedy to Nixon to Carter to Ford to Clinton to Barack, if any of them had to face the impact, of Russian interference in such a bold way, did they face the foolishness of the Electoral College and the interference of the FBI, none of them Hillary won in spite of having 3 million vote lead. So we're not going to let anybody break our spirit. We're going to keep fighting back. The big election that comes this year, we intend to win, and I am convinced that the man who has the right moral compass is the head of DNC, Brother Tom Perez. Tom, come forward. Put your hands together.
Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. It is an honor to be here with you. It's a particular honor to sit at the same table with Reverend Vivian. I was remembering, I think it was 2013, when President Obama bestowed the Medal of Freedom on you, a well-deserved honor for a lifetime of service and leadership. And I want to say thank you. Senator Claiborne, Representative Ammons, keep up the fight. Thank you for what you're doing day in and day out, because you got a lot of work to do here. You got a governor who doesn't believe in the values of opportunity, and you've been fighting the fight every single day. So thank you for what you're doing. And my mentor, John Rogers, is also here, a good friend that I got to know in the Obama administration. And to all of you in labor, thank you for bringing us the weekend, okay? Thank you for bringing us the middle class. You know, there was a study that just came out from the National Bureau of Economic Research that said, it was studying the union movement in the 20th century, and it said the high point of American unions coincided with the low point of American wage inequality in the 20th century. Let me repeat that. The high point of American unions coincided with the low point of American wage inequality in the 20th century. That's what the union movement has done. You've brought us the middle class. When unions succeed, the middle class succeeds. When unions succeed, communities succeed. And that's why I'm so honored to be here. And this is not my first rodeo with Reverend Jackson. My first time, I think it was 2010. We were in Wall Street. We were talking about the foreclosure crisis, which was decimating African American and Latino communities. The corrosive power of fine print transforming the American dream and the American nightmare. And I appreciated your leadership back then. A couple of years later, I came here to Chicago, and we talked about both the challenges and opportunities confronting Latino and African American communities. And sitting here and watching Isara coming up here is an illustration of our joint destiny, the work that we continue to do together. I had the privilege of coming here as labor secretary to talk about jobs and justice. 2 weeks into my tenure, I had the privilege of going to the 50th anniversary commemoration of the March on Washington. And for me, that was what my life was about, because the March on Washington was a march for jobs and indeed a march for justice. And again, it was such an honor to be here working with all of you on these issues. We have been here and we will continue to fight. I come here wearing a different hat, but frankly, the cause is the same. It's the cause of opportunity. It's the cause of inclusion. And I would actually argue that this meeting that we're having here today may be the most important one of all, because this is the most serious stress test ever on our democracy. And we need to be together, and we need to be fighting together. And you look at what we saw, you look at how we need to go forward, and I am confident that we can do this. I come to you not only with a sense of purpose and seriousness, but with a sense of optimism. And I have optimism because I get to sit next to Reverend Vivian and Reverend Jackson, and they understand what it's like to get hit in the head, to get jailed. And as the song of the movement goes, when we fall down, we get up. We get up even stronger. We get up with greater purpose. And that's what it's about. And everybody, that's what we've been doing. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And we're going to get up and fight this president, but we're also going to get up and lead with our values as Democrats. There are so many issues that we need to keep fighting on. And you mentioned, Reverend Jackson, the issue of health care. You look at the health care proposal, and the thing that we must start with is, it is not a health care proposal. It is a massive tax cut for wealthy people masquerading as a health care proposal. And we must understand that. Everywhere I go, I was on the train last week from New York. 2 people on that train ride tap me on the shoulder. They say, "Are you Tom Perez? I got to tell you my story." You know, a parent whose kid is on the autism spectrum. Medicaid is their lifeline. It enables them to stay in the home. Another person with diabetes finally got health care coverage. Another person who talked to me about their triplets, one of whom was hospitalized for 9 months at a cost of $1.3 million. Because of the Affordable Care Act, they aren't in bankruptcy. This is what's at risk. The opioid epidemic does not discriminate. It is in every corner of this country. And when you have a proposal that's going to make it harder for people to get access, whether it's here in Chicago or whether it's in McDowell County, West Virginia, there's something wrong with that picture. And I'm confident that you will see a proposal offered next week or whenever they take it up. Someone will say, we're going to add $50 billion to deal with the opioid epidemic. And that's going to sound like a lot of money to some. Well, folks, if I told you yesterday that I'm taking $1 away from you, and I tell you today, I got a deal for you, I'm going to give you 20 cents back, would you take that deal? That's exactly what they're trying to do. Medicaid, 60% of people in nursing homes are funded by Medicaid. 60%. We are a strong nation because we are a compassionate nation. We are a strong nation because we understand that health care is a right and not a privilege. And so we are continuing to fight, and we need your help, because the reason we've been successful so far is because of you. You understand organizing. That's what you've been all about. That's your DNA, is organizing. And we need to continue to organize. We need to look at this budget that they have proposed. I've always said budgets are moral documents. They tell you a lot about the values and the priorities of a community. Look at what's happened in my old agency. Job training, which is the lifeline for people here in Chicago and elsewhere. I came to Chicago a number of times and saw apprenticeship programs at work. Apprenticeship, the union movement has the original patent on apprenticeship. And you've done great work. And we worked hard to take that to further scale. And now they want to chop it. Apprenticeship is the other college, except without the debt. And when we invest in programs, when we invest in pre-apprenticeship programs that give pathways to opportunity, like we've been doing in the Obama administration, those are remarkable opportunities. But no, that's not what they're doing. They're doing just the opposite. You have a Secretary of Education who doesn't believe in public education. What else can I say? The Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act has only been around for 40 some odd years. You would have thought she would have known what it was when she came for her hearing. You know, the cuts to low-income home energy assistance, as we sit here in Chicago, it's cold in the winter. What are you supposed to do? We need to keep telling these stories. We need to keep holding this administration accountable. We need to keep leading with our values. I had the privilege of working at the Justice Department for over 14 years. I prosecuted a police officer in LA pre-Rodney King, if you want to get a sense of how old I am. Okay, I had hair, I had no replacement parts. It was in the early 90s. And you know what, folks? I'm proud of the fact that when I had the privilege of running the Civil Rights Division, we entered into more consent decrees in the 3 years I was there than in the previous 15 years that we were under the new law. And I did so because it works for communities. It works for the police department. The Los Angeles Police Department is better off today than it was under Daryl Gates because of the consent decree, because of leadership in the department, because of leadership and advocacy in the community. And you have an attorney general today who's trying to turn that clock back. In my home state of Maryland, the mayor of Baltimore had to say, no, we want this consent decree. And Jeff Sessions is saying, no, we know better. You don't know better, sir. You're living in the world of false choices. They ask the wrong questions on the police context. Whose side are you on? You on the police's side? You on the community's side? That's the wrong question. Every police officer I've ever talked to has said to me, my most valuable currency is the trust of the community. If you don't have the trust of the community, you don't have anything. And that is why I did so much work in this setting. I did it to make our community safer. I did it to make the job of a police officer safer. And I'm proud that we were able to make progress. And I can't tell you the number of officers and police chiefs who would come up to me privately and say, Tom, I'm glad you're here. So that's what's at stake. And then you see what's happening in the voting context at the Department of Justice. And John Lewis said not too long ago, this is the words of John Lewis, people stood in unmovable lines. They had to pass a so-called literacy test, pay a poll tax. On one occasion, a man was asked to count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap. On another occasion, One was asked to count the number of jelly beans in a jar, all to keep them from casting their ballots. Well, folks, we thought these days were behind us. And maybe they're not asking folks to count jelly beans, but you know what? Voter suppression is a staple in the Republican playbook. And we have to understand that. And unfortunately, this Attorney General is aiding and abetting those efforts. This so-called Voter Suppression Commission is an absolute sham. The person running it, the Secretary of State of Kansas, was recently sanctioned by a federal judge in Kansas for lack of candor in connection with a voting case. It is a sham. And we must hold them accountable. That's why we established our own commission at the DNC. And so we continue to see these efforts to turn back the clock, and it is undeniably, tragically ironic that when we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, we found ourselves playing more defense than offense. But you know what, folks? When you have the likes of Reverend Vivian and Reverend Jackson here, we know what we have to do. Organize, organize, organize. And that's exactly what we're doing at the DNC. Our DNC has a new mission, folks. We're not simply here to elect the President of the United States. We are in existence to help elect people from the school board to the Senate, up and down the ballot. And we do so by helping to build strong parties everywhere and strong partnerships everywhere. Now, I want to be honest with you. I took this job and I ran for this job because I knew we had to do better. And as I've come into this job, I've made a lot of house calls, and they have affirmed to me that the Democratic Party needs to up its game. We need to organize, organize, organize. We need to be in communities, not just in the 3 months in the run-up to the election. I'll never forget the woman who told me in Detroit at the African-American church I visited, "You can't show up at my church every 4th October and pretend that you care." That's not organizing. And that is disrespectful to a constituency that has been the most loyal constituency of the Democratic Party. And I'm here to tell you that we listen and we absolutely appreciate the fact that we need to up our game as a Democratic Party. And we up our game by making sure we are present 12 months a year. The Democratic Party all too frequently was the accordion. We expand in a presidential cycle. We contract in between, and we scratch our heads and wonder why we lose midterms. We've got to eliminate the term off year from our lexicon. Every year is an on year. Every day is an on day. Every day we must be talking to people. That is why we initiated a program that we're calling Resistance Summer. We had events to lead off this program in every single state. We had 120 events, many partners. It's a down payment on the new DNC, a DNC in which we're out there talking to people. We're out there standing up for our colleagues who are taking it on the chin. The labor movement is taking it on the chin. The Supreme Court is poised to make it very difficult for unions in the public sector to organize. And by the way, if and when they succeed there, the private sector union movement is next. And as my friend Lee Saunders said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And Republicans want to put the labor movement on the menu. We will not allow that to happen. And we will do that by organizing, organizing, organizing. It's exactly what we're going to do. And we will make sure that we're talking to folks, that we're listening and learning from you. I was in Flint when I worked in the administration, and then more recently. And you know what, folks? When you don't have access to safe drinking water, that is a fundamental human right violation. And we must be there for them. And that is exactly what we're doing. We are organizing, organizing, organizing. We're building a Democratic Party that works for everyone in every zip code. I talk to people in rural America who feel isolated from the party. I talk to people in Detroit and Chicago and elsewhere who feel isolated, and we are working to change that. But we must do it together. because we're all in this boat together. And that's why I am here to say we need your partnership. And what I hear most from people is, Tom, we not only need to organize, but we need to articulate clearly what we stand for as a Democratic Party. Well, let me tell you what Democrats stand for. We are the party that stands for a future of inclusion and opportunity for all America, for all Americans. We believe that nobody who works a full-time job in this country should have to live in poverty. Nobody should ever have to choose between a gallon of milk or a gallon of gas or the prescription drugs. That's not an America that we want to live in. We believe that zip code should never determine destiny. We believe that our Secretary of Education ought to believe in public education. We believe that our EPA administrator ought to understand that climate change is very real. We believe that when unions succeed, America succeeds, and we must support a strong union movement. We believe that we should be building more schools, not prisons. We believe in second chances for everyone. And you know what, folks? I have an ambivalent relationship with the term second chance because I've met so many people in the course of the privilege I've had of doing various jobs in public service. I've met so many people who haven't had a fair first chance. And so we must make sure that everybody has a fair first chance as well as a fair second chance. We believe that clean drinking water is a basic human right. We believe that when women succeed, America succeeds. We believe that police departments and communities can and must work together to ensure safety, to ensure prosperity in their communities. Because as I said before, the best currency any police officer has is the trust of the community. We believe as Democrats that health care is a right for all and not a privilege for a few. And we will continue to fight like heck on that issue. We believe in workers' rights and women's rights. We believe in voting rights and LGBT rights. We know that we can be an America that works for everyone because we believe that our diversity is our greatest strength. Our immigrant heritage is what brought us such strength in America. And we believe that when we put hope on the ballot, we do well. And when we allow others to put fear in the eyes of people, we don't do so hot. And so that's what we're doing, folks. We're moving forward. And while we have undeniable stress tests and challenges, I leave you with the words of a guy that I've gotten to know recently. His name is Walter Isaacson, a wonderful author and storyteller, written biographies of the likes of Steve Jobs and Ben Franklin and others. And he wrote a biography of a guy named Albert Einstein. And in this story, he tells the story of letters that Albert Einstein wrote to his son in the 1950s, in the height of the McCarthy era. And his letters went like this, his first letters. What's going on with this country? I fled Nazi Germany to escape the pathologies of Hitler, and I see in McCarthy so many of the same dark forces. And then you fast forward a year or two later, after McCarthy's been censured and reduced to the dustbin of history. And he writes another letter to his son in which he says, what a country! I love this country. It has this gyroscope. That was his word. And just when you think the gyroscope is spinning out of control, it rights itself. Well, folks, the gyroscope is not a piece of technology. The gyroscope is the collective power of we. It's what President Obama said down in Selma, commemorating the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when he said the most important word in a democracy is that simple two-letter word, we. Reverend Vivian's been the gyroscope throughout his life. Reverend Jackson's been the gyroscope. The union movement has been the gyroscope. John Rogers has been the gyroscope of corporate social responsibility. Y'all have been the gyroscope. And the reason I have optimism, folks, is that while we don't have the White House right now, and we don't have the Senate, we don't have the House, we've got something that's way more powerful. We've got the gyroscope. We got to take that gyroscope to Virginia and New Jersey this year so that we win elections there. And we take this gyroscope to school board races and mayor's races, and we win for Democrats there. Because when we elect good Democrats and when we lead with our values, the values that I've outlined, we build an America that works for everyone. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your activism. Continue to be the gyroscope. Thank you very much.
DNC Chairman Tom Perez. Everybody give it up one more time.
Put your hands together. I want to again acknowledge one, Labor also needs friends, one of those gyroscopes. John Rogers, please stand again. Ariel Capital. Unions have pension funds, and their friends must be able to manage union pension funds. Another hand for John Rogers. I want to announce that Rainbow Push's Labor Director is Omar Sharif. Omar, please stand. He'll be our point of contact. Where's Omar? We can't say thank you enough for the price he paid, and God has him in his 90s and still marching. Reverend C.G. Vivian. I do want to say that today at noontime at our luncheon, the minister's luncheon, we have Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Flager and Reverend Andrew Young and others of us. We're going to honor these giants today, Reverend Jeremiah Wright and the like, today at noontime. You who need to have lunch someplace, you ought to try it with us today at noontime. Also, tonight we'll have a workshop today on this generational gap between from SNCC to where we are today, Black Power, Black Lives Matter, hooking up our youth. On tomorrow at the Women's Luncheon, Elizabeth Warren is the keynote speaker tomorrow at noontime, and Aretha Franklin will be honored. Now, Aretha Franklin, we're not advertising that she is singing. So we're not advertising that Aretha Franklin is singing. She's being honored. But she did order a piano and an organ and some drums. Hint, hint. So if you don't have your table, I would urge you not to miss Aretha tomorrow at the luncheon at noontime. Tomorrow night at Rainbow Push at 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we're going to have the Democratic candidates for governor. We're going to honor them or recognize them tomorrow night in a forum and hear what they have to say to the community, what they have to say to the people tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at 50th and Drexel. And Bernie Sanders speaks to us on Saturday morning. Bernie Sanders and Maxine Waters are going to have us a huge rally on Saturday morning at 50th and Drexel. And those of you in the union, please come this Saturday and bring your unions with you on this occasion. Brother Jenkins, before we leave, I want you to have something to say to our people. Bernanke made a statement referencing your name. And by the way, as he comes forward, on your tables are rainbow envelopes. I need you to fill them out. If for no other reason than we need you in our database, please fill out the envelope now. Fill it up if you're generous enough. But whether you're generous or not, please fill it out. We need you to, I want you connected to Rainbow Beyond today. Brother Jenkins, you had a little testimony. Please share that testimony about what Labor and Democrats mean to you.
Thank you, Reverend. My name is Calvin Jenkins, CJ, President of Community Play Lot Builders. I asked Reverend Jackson, can I come up here to speak? Because I felt that Don Bernanke was being a little modest. He mentioned me as one of the people that he's working with, one of the contractors he's working with in the community. It's a little bit more than that, but for you all to understand that, y'all first have to understand my past. I stand here a blessed man. Believe it or not, I've been shot 32 times. Yeah. Because of Don Bernanke, I'm now able to afford health insurance. I will be having a hip replacement.
Y'all sit down, let him alone. Sit down for a minute. Be respectful of Brother Jenkins. Sit right down. Treat you take any time. Have a seat right now.
Right. I've been shot 32 times, and because now I'm employed, I can have the hip surgery that I need, which I'll be having next month. Right? I come from the notorious Henry Horner Homes, where I've done 2 years in Illinois Juvenile Detention Center, St. Charles. I did 2 years in the Illinois Department of Correction. I did 5 years in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So if not for Related Midwest and Don Bernanke, my next step may be death row. You know, my son was following my footsteps. You know, last year, my son had caught a pistol case, you know, riding around with guns. My son right now is at McLean Grammar School at 3527 West Wallace, building a playground. I thank you, Don. I do. And he's not giving me anything. I'm working for it. And it's not just me, it's other guys from the Henry Horner who used to be my enemies, and now we're friends. I'm signatory to the Carpenters Union, signatory to the Laborers Union. So I too support the union and the Democratic parties. So I just wanted to come up here and let you all know the story. And one last thing, maybe like 10 years ago, my 6-year-old son, who was following in my footsteps, it was all on the news. He was in the car with me, and he was shot in the chest, almost died. You know, so I just wanted everybody to know, because Don Bernanke was just, yes, you know, I did it. He's doing it. It's more than that. It's more than that. Thank you.
Let's stand together. See, we get our stars from our scars. Our stars from our scars. We heal by the stripes of the righteous. Put your hands together. Thank you, Brother Jenkins. That's it, right?
I was just going to say, if anybody's still hungry, there's plenty of food in the back. I'm done, Pastor. It's all yours.
Don't y'all eat them cold eggs. Join hands, let us bow our heads in prayer. Those who are inclined to come to our luncheon at noontime today, please do so. In the meantime, there are workshops right now, including I'm trying to start a movement for the Jesse Jackson Social Justice Institute, trying to teach young ministers how to fight, not just how to dress. We're going to start teaching that course on how to act, not just piety, but power. We must change the conditions within us and the condition of will within. I accept our petition, dear God. Forgive us for our sins and the foolishness of our ways. Make us better, never bitter. Let us help those whose backs are against the wall and lift as we climb. Bless labor in this attempt to organize that we might have security for our families and for our communities. Amen. Lunchtime.